Hey everybody, this is Brian, head route setter with Ascend Pittsburgh. In light of the closure, I decided I'm going to make myself a little home woody wall, do some training, and I figured I would let you all in on how to do it, how I'm going to do it anyway. And the first step is to see how messy everything is down here in my garage. So, this is it. Got my crash pads, got all the wood for the wall. 18 2x6s and 2 sheets of 4x8 23 32 inch plywood, which is roughly 3/4 of an inch. Then all the stuff that I need to move. My dog. Okay, so to give you an idea, the wall is going to go back there in the corner, hopefully. If I can make it fit, it's going to go roughly the size of that bar, be about 30 degrees overhanging. But step number one, I need to get all this stuff out of the way. Okay. I've just finished step one and I've organized all my stuff that was here, or maybe just moved it from over there to over here. But now this area is cleaned up and I've been able to lay my boards out on my 2x6s. This is actually going to be the wall surface. So what these are 2x6s, they're each 8 feet long or 96 inches. That's what the tape measure is, 96 inches there. Each of these studs is laid out 16 inches from the next. Okay, that's kind of standard. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing this piece is plywood comes in 4x8 sheets, and this is 3 inches longer than 8 feet. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut 3 inches off of each of the studs to account for that extra length. Okay. Wall update. I finished the framing of the wall. Plywood will go on the side facing the floor because this wall is bigger than my ceiling, and so there's no way I can put the plywood on here and then flip it over so I can climb on it. So the way I'm gonna do that is, well, because I'm working by myself, if there's somebody else here, I would have them hold it up and do this, but the way I'm gonna do that is I've got these really long bolts. These are 6-inch carriage bolts. They're a little too long. 4 inches would be fine for this, but I'm gonna drill a 1/2 inch hole here, put the carriage bolt through, have another one of these 8-foot 2x6s here, attach it, leave it loose, put one on the other side, raise this thing up, brace the 2x6s, get it to the angle I want, and then tighten the bolts down and screw that 2x6 in. Okay, then there will be another 2x6 running from the base of the wall to the brace, and that should hold it up for the time being. Okay, I might get to that right now. Okay, Woody Wall update, day 2. Lots happened since last night. My brother came over this morning and helped me raise things up. So here's where we are now. The wall is up at around 30 degrees, it's like 33. What we did this morning is my brother lifted this section up the wall. I put these 2x6s in place while he was holding it. I put this bolt through that we talked about yesterday, held that in, and then put these boards on at the bottom. And these are screwed in to the base, and I didn't have a long enough board, so I just made one board out of 2. Okay, and that's come down here, and that's screwed in over here behind the Christmas tree. All right, and so the idea being that just like a little A-frame, that's gonna take most of the weight and hold it there. Okay, other things that we've done, put that board in. That's just to kind of hold those in place, make everything square. These little boards we've put in to take into account the 4-foot sections of plywood. That's to cover the seam so you have something to screw into. Next, I'm waiting for a saw so I can cut these a little bit more. They're not quite square, so I need to make them fit onto this. So what I'm going to do in the meantime while I'm waiting for that saw, I'm going to figure out a way to mount my hangboard on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a little box that comes out in the corner and mount my hangboard to that. So that will be this afternoon's project. Okay, another woody wall update. Still waiting for the saw so I can cut the plywood to fit onto the wall. But in the meantime, I have been able to frame in this box, which was a little bit more complicated than I was thinking it was going to be, but only because I had to account for where the seams of the plywood are going to end up. So taking a closer look at that. Box is on there, pretty simple. The hangboard's going to go right here. Well, actually, I'm going to put one more board on this to raise it up a little bit higher. So I can hang a little bit straighter down on it without bending my knees so much. But that's just a couple of 2x6s attached straight to the beams in the back, out front. Board went across them. Had to drill a big hole in that to get the carriage bolt through, but pretty simple. And then the rest of these are acting just like these are acting, because the plywood's going to come up the front of the board. It's going to stop here, run across this, and then up here and finish. So really I'm just going to have to notch this out of the plywood, which isn't going to be too bad when I get the saw. Yeah, but I don't want to leave the tops of these just hanging and bouncing. There is going to be an edge here for the plywood, but I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, my next step is, I think I'm actually going to just drill out the T-nuts for this. It's something I've been putting off because it's monotonous, but it has to be done. So I'll do it now, and hopefully I'll get those T-nuts in the next couple hours to be delivered, and I can put them in, get the saw, put them up, and be almost done. Okay, a little bit of an addendum for the last video, just because I saw that there were some things on the wall that might be a little bit confusing for people. So these boards that I put on to catch the seam, because they're so close to these, couldn't just be flat 2x6s like these bottom ones, because the box is taking up the space that would need. So what I had to do is actually like rip a 30-degree angle. It's actually closer to 33 degrees across the front, so that my plywood would sit flush all the way across, or flat all the way across. This little guy is called a shim, and that's just because I didn't want to cut a whole nother piece, but I cut this one just a little bit too short. And that's fine, because this really isn't going to be, it's not going to be it's not super structural. It's just to keep the plywood from bouncing around too much when I grab things that are close to it. So I'm not too worried about that. If it was anything more important, I would have cut a new board for that. Yeah, and so I just wanted to explain that so that people weren't wondering what these weird things were. Over here, there's another little shim. That was just aesthetic. That doesn't need to be done, but and then this and this go together at a nice 30-degree angle. Okay, end of my second evening working on the woody wall, and I'm just about done. At least I have all the tools and all the equipment I need now. So T-nuts came in about half an hour ago. I found a circular saw stashed away in my sister's stuff. So I can finish the plywood tomorrow for sure. And then put the T-nuts in, hang it. And I finished the hangboard station, so I can actually start using this now. Put these little eye bolts in here so that I can hang up the rings. They're not really as high as I'd like for the rings, but it's okay, I can make it work. It'll also work for a pulley in case I want to take weight off doing any kind of hangs up there on that. Okay, the way I put the hangboard together, it's a little, it works. Let's just leave it at that, it works. So here's the original that I showed you in the last video. when I was looking at it, I really wanted to be able to put the micro edges up as well and have room for my fingers to potentially curl up and not hit anything on top of it if I didn't want them to. So I didn't want to put these too close to this hangboard. I also didn't want to have my hand hitting anything, because that's just kind of like a personal pet peeve of mine on the hangboard. Don't like it when my thumb fat rests on any other wood. So I wanted to keep some distance in between here. So what I did was I just put some longer cut 2x6s here, and some shorter ones take up space here. And that's what the different colors are. Yeah, so these are longer, so that this big one is 2x8, I think. No. So I can sit up a little bit higher and be a little bit closer to the ceiling. All right, so that's the hangboard setup. Tomorrow's the plywood, and then I gotta start putting holes on it. All right. All right, final day of the build out, and I only have a handful of things left to do. First thing I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna cut a sheet of plywood here down to the right size. I'm gonna take all the plywood, I'm gonna drill out the T-nut holes on the grid pattern that I've decided on, which I'll explain in a few minutes. I'm gonna drill those out with a 7/16 inch paddle bit. And then I got pound-in T-nuts because I have pretty good access to the back of my wall. If I didn't, then I would have got screw-in T-nuts, which are a little bit better, a little bit pricier though. The last thing I have to do is actually put the plywood up on the wall, which hopefully won't take that long because I've already put it up once and had somebody helping me with that. So we were able to screw it in, and I'll just use those same screw holes to tack it up and then screw it on fully a little bit later. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna start with cutting the top of this piece of plywood off. Okay, so I'm about halfway through laying out the T-nut grid and drilling and then pounding in all of the T-nuts. It's pretty slow, but I figured this is a good spot to show everybody what this looks like. So this board is actually going to go in the bottom left corner over there, but to make it easier just to measure everything out, I'm going to do it the mirror image and then flip it back onto the wall the way it should be. But the T-nut grid I decided on was an 8x6 grid, so 8 inches between T-nuts going horizontally, 6 inches between T-nuts going vertically, and I decided to make that grid just a little bit offset. I started at 2 inches in from the corner so that I could clear that beam and that one over there. So my first row of T-nuts would be off that a little bit, but I wanted to get it as close to that as I could, so I can get as many T-nuts on the wall as I can. Okay, so the way that I've been drilling these out, laid out my grid, then I started drilling these through, and I only drill them through about 2/3, 3/4 of the way, just so I have a hole on the other side, and then I go to the other side and I finish the hole off. That way, you get a nice clean hole on the front. It doesn't always work that way, but it's nice if there's not a bunch of splintering on the front of the wall. Okay, so that's where I'm at now. I've got these two pretty much done, and I need to get those two finished, so I probably have another hour and a half work here. Okay. All right, so the wall is up and done, and it's actually ready for me to put holes on it now. But before I do that, I want to add one more thing to this so that I can get all of my exercises done in this one little area. I want to attach just a straight bar to the top of the wall, and I found this that I had from an old hangboard that I was using. Now I just need to figure out a way to get it attached up there, and I'm thinking I'm probably going to do something with my leftover 2x6 and a couple of bolts. I'm not exactly sure what yet. Alright, at this point I've finished the pull-up bar. So what I decided to do here was just use a bunch of scrap wood that I had and took some 2x6s, put this one in directly to the wall, and then screwed this one in to this one so I can get a little bit of downward support for this piece of plywood. And I chose plywood back here, and it runs all the way back to the back. Okay, then I just put a little T-nut in, bolt through the top, ran it over, and it's pretty sturdy. I don't know how it's gonna hold up to like weighted pull-ups, but I have no reason to believe that it's not gonna work. So excited to try that. The last thing I need to do now is clean up all this sawdust, which is everywhere, especially over there. Move all that stuff around, put it back where it belongs, and then I can start getting holds up on the wall and start training, and take you guys for that too. Okay, and finally it's time to start putting holds on the wall. So what I'm gonna do is take the advice of a friend and put some bad feet on the wall first. He said that would, for me, something I've been trying to work on is using bad feet on an overhanging wall and keeping tension on those feet. So I'm gonna start doing that. He said it would also force me into getting into body positions that I otherwise wouldn't wanna be on. As a route setter, something I do kind of subconsciously is look for comfortable body positions in places that I'd want to be, and it's hard to get out of that mindset sometimes. So I'm hoping that by following his advice and putting bad feet on first, it'll kind of help me out with that, and I think it would also be kind of fun. After I do that, I'm going to get some 1 or 2 pad edges, some decent little in-cut holds, and put them up in a circuit so that I can do 20 or 30 moves on this wall without coming off. And then after that, I'm gonna start building hard boulders all over the place that kind of intersect, overlap, and then as I'm climbing on the wall over the course of the next few days, I'm sure things will move around as I need them to. These are the holds that I'm gonna be using. There's a bunch of really cool old holds here. Folius, Nitros, some hangboard holds that I'll return to the gym once we're back open. Some neat little pockets. These things, which I love these things, they're super cool. Some really sweet screw-on holes. What else we got in here? So I got some jugs. I guess put those up. Yeah, some of the bad feet that we'll be putting on the wall. I feel like that would actually maybe be, well, that was pretty bad. What else? All kinds of stuff in here. Mono pocket, like really deep, really good mono pocket though. Some slopers. This looks usable. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be doing for the next couple hours, couple days, you know, rest of my life. That's a really nice edge for like that 20-30 move circuit that I was talking about. I feel like that would be perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna get those on there, and then I'm gonna get climbing. Okay, so here it is. It's done. Or at least it's done for now until I start climbing on it and decide where I want to move holds around, and if the feet are too bad, if the holds are good enough, things like that. But it's ready to work on. It's ready to start climbing on. So, give you a closer look at some of the stuff. These are the holds that I've borrowed from a friend of mine. Yeah, they look good, don't they? Look at all those colors. Yeah, I've got a lot of pockets. Probably have more pockets than I actually want, but you know, who knows? Maybe I'll go to Frank and Ura in a few years. All right, cool. So these are all the bad feet that I've put on the wall. This is specifically to train what I consider a weakness is really extending up on these really poor feet. And there's some good feet in there too. I put those on in case somebody else wants to climb on the wall. And for my circuit training, and you know, in case I want to do a really hard move off of like some really bad holds, specifically those two little bad holds, I'm gonna want some good feet and then work my way up to those bad feet. But yeah, it's been fun putting this thing together. It's giving me something to do in quarantine for a few days, and it'll give me something to do for the next few days, weeks, whatever it happens to be. I will be putting up some more videos, you know, using the hangboard, some different things that you can do at home if you have a hangboard, stay interested in it, some different things that I like to do as far as you know, different ways to train for different things. So you can keep a lookout for those on the Ascend to Go